Putin himself will become more of a totalitarian leader, assuming he is able to do so, which I think he's got the weapons to do that. There is a central weakness to the Russian system of government under Putin, and that is, although it says dictator, therefore everything's going to be done according to the word of one person, it's not like that at all. There's a good deal of chaos within it. I thought it was typical that he spoke about spoke about the 1917, when the Russian army essentially dissolved during the First World War. The thought that haunts him, and always has, I think, is that some such development will happen. Whether there will be Prigozhin or not is, I think, more in question. But the idea of a chaotic end to it is possible, even probable.
Sir Andrew, Prigozhin has been known to be quite wily. He knows what he's doing. A lot of people, of course, have pointed to the fact that he was created or allowed to be developed along with his Wagner group of fighters by Vladimir Putin as a sort of paramilitary arm that could get involved, keeping Vladimir Putin's hands clean, so to speak. Do you think he would be moving against President Putin in such an obvious fashion, marching his troops up that M4 motorway towards Moscow, if he wasn't sure that he had some support around the inner circle of President Putin?
I think he could be confident of having some sympathy within the Russian armed forces, particularly those doing the fighting rather than making the decisions. I think he can have some support in the idea that quite a large number of the Russian public have now lost faith in what Putin has done, because there have been a huge amount of killings, woundings and so on in the Russian forces, and because it has taken a great deal of time and hasn't yet had much huge success anyway. But I'm not sure. Prigozhin is quite a inflammable man in his rhetoric. I believe that he has been able, in his mind, to distinguish between attacking the president and trying to encourage the president to deal with the armed forces on a way he would think are better. So I wouldn't at all guarantee that he is going to reach Moscow and that there will be a resolution there. Putin has to defy him.
Do you have any concerns as to what happens after these developments unfold? And what I'm pointing to is, should Vladimir Putin survive this assault on his authority, what kind of leader is he going to turn into?
I think Putin himself will become more of a totalitarian leader, assuming he is able to do so, which I think he's got the weapons to do that. How long it would last and so on is a different matter. I don't think it's an automatic indicator that someone else will take over as a direct and immediate result of what's been happening. I think it's more likely that he will be driven towards even more repression on anyone who disagrees with him than he does already, which in the longer run will make him more vulnerable. But I don't see that Prigozhin can actually win something like that.
Sir Andrew, from your point of view as a former UK ambassador to Russia and looking at the diplomatic point of view, what's the West do now? We've heard from the Prime Minister, there's a Cobra meeting taking place. Everyone's keeping a very close eye. But what do you think the West are going to be hoping for right now?
Well, the West are going to hope and fear a collapse of the Russian state. That is the only avenue towards a a decent Russia rather than one which continued down its present path. So I don't think there's any material at present on which you can base a new or different long-term set of strategy. We have to see what happens. We have to see whether Putin is forced into a different sort of era in Russia, which I think is difficult for him. But a solution here does really depend on what the Russian population do and what various elements within the current regime decide to do. Which means, to me, means it is a very considerable area of doubt. We should not be under the illusion that we know what will happen or that we can decide what happened. That would be a decision for the Russian people above all, and also for the people of Ukraine.
In your view, what is going to be the knock-on effect in the war in Ukraine? Of course, at the moment, we can see that Ukrainian forces are, well, relishing the fact that the Russian army's attentions are focused elsewhere. What do you think the overall effect will be in the conflict in Ukraine?
Well, that really depends, again, on what happens within the Russian army. It will, without any question, it affects their morale, which is already pretty low. But at the same time, they do have unusually credible defenses at present. So the decision for Ukraine will be to decide when and where to use their main force, as opposed to their present effort, which is for forces which are part of the main force, but not actually the whole deployment of it, finding ways to get through the Russian lines. They will continue to pursue that policy, I think, and do it with a little more, well, with a boost to their hopes.